Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, the Mishnah towards the top of the Amud. The Mishnah now describes the beginning of the Avodah of Yom Kippur. Zok the Mishnah Pashat Yerad V'Tava, the Kohen Gadol, so before starting the Avodah. So Pashat, he removes his big day chol, and he now is Yerad V'Tava. He goes into the mikveh, he goes down to the mikveh to be titled. All of it is stopping. He gets up, he ascends from the mikveh, and he dries himself. So there's a discussion in the Chreinim, why does it make a point, the Mishnah have to make a point that he dries himself? That would be just a normal procedure. Why does the Mishnah have to point it out? The Tiferes Yisrael says it's to ensure that there's no chatzitza. Perhaps the water has some dirt particles in it that might be a chatzitza between him as begodim, or perhaps the water itself would be a chatzitza. Therefore, the Mishnah makes a point to say he dries himself to make sure that there's no chatzitza, there's nothing interposing between his body and his big day kahuna. They bring to him his big day zahav, the 8 begodim that the Kohen Gadol wears normally during the year. The avodah that we're starting off now with is not the avodah that's particular for Yom Kippur, it's the avodah, the daily avodah of the Talmud. And the avodah, all the avodas of Yom Kippur are done by the Kohen Gadol, even the standard avodas, the standard procedures. So now he's coming to do the avodah of the Talmud. He wears his regular big day kahuna, the 8 begodim. So Hevilu big day zav v'lavish, and he puts it on. Kiddush yadav v'raglav. And then after he puts on the big day kahuna, he does kiddush yadav v'raglav. He washes his hands and feet from the kier, from the water of the kier, as we'll see. And we learned previously there's 10 kiddush yadayim raglayim. What is the precise order we'll see, but right now the Tana says after he put on his big day zahav, he does a kiddush yadayim raglayim. Then they bring the keves for the Talmud for him. He cuts it, he chefs it, and then another kind finishes it, he completes it for him. Since all the avodas are done on Yom Kippur by the Kohen Gadol, so he has to save time as much as possible. The completion of the shlit, he hands it over to a different Kohen to complete it, where then the Kohen Gadol now moves on to do the other avodas. So another Kohen completes the shchita for him. Kibel es hadam uzraka. He does the kabbalas hadam, and then he does zriki. He collects the blood in the klishoris. He comes to the mizbeach. He does the zrika on the northeast and southwest corners of the mizbeach. Then nichnas lahag to keter shel shachar. Then he comes in to the heichal to burn the keteres of shachar. This is not referring to the keteres of the Yom Kippur avodah, which we will discuss later on. This is the regular keteres that they did every day and every afternoon, that they were marked to the keteres in the Mizbeach Hazav in the Heichal. So he comes in, l'haktir keteres shel shachar, u'laheitiv esaneres, and to prepare the lamps for the menorah. Rashi says over here that this hatova that we're dealing with is the hatova of the preparing of the neres, the 2 neres. It was split in 2 segments, like we learned previously, 5 and 2. And therefore, here we're talking about the cleaning of the lamps, of the remaining 2 lamps. And that's the way most Rishonim learn over here, that the heitiv esaneres means to prepare the lamps, to clean them out and to prepare them. The Rambam learns it means to light the lamps. So he comes and he does the hatava of the neres, ulahakar haresh v'seivorim, and he brings the eivorim, the limbs, the head, and the eivorim, that they were put on the kevesh, as we learned before, they were in the lower half of the kevesh, and then they were brought from there, they were up and brought to be burnt on the mizbeach. And also he comes after that, he does v'chavitin v'sayayin. He does the chavitin. The Kohen Gadol had, every day he had his chavitin. He had a series of ephah, of a mincha, and half was done in the morning, half was done in the afternoon. So he comes to bring the bimakriv, the chavitim, and the yayin, and also the yayin of the Masachim for the Korban Atonement. There's much discussion in the Achreinim, why does it not mention the mincha of the flour of the Korban Atonement? Why is that omitted? It mentions the yayin, it doesn't mention the chavitim. There's different opinions. There's Rabbi Kiveger and the Taisus Yontif. Some say that it is included in the Yayin, and some say that it's included in the Chavitin. The Rashash has a Chiddush Pshat. He says that the Tana does not mention it because since it is something that you can be makriv at the nighttime, therefore it can be done by someone other than the Kohen Gadol, so therefore it is not mentioned in the Mishnah. Then the Mishnah continues, Ketayra shel Shachar, the morning Ketayra is Haisakreva ben Dam Leivor. It was brought between the blood and between the zrik of the blood, of the dam, and the burning of the Eivor. So that's when it was brought between the dam, the zrik of the dam, and the haktor of the Eivor. So bein arbaim in the afternoon, bein Eivorim l'nesochim, it was brought between the burning of the Eivorim and the bringing of the nesochim. Im haya kohen gadol zaken ha'isen is if the kohen gadol was old or he was finicky, he was delicate, mechamin leichamin, they heat up the water for him. They heat up the water him on Erev Yom Kippur, and so in order that the water should not be so cold, and they pour it into the cold water of the mikveh, so that it will remove some of the chill of the water. Zok the Gemara, Amr Rabbanan Kamid Rav Papa. They said in front of Rav Papa, Hadaloi Ramer. Our Tana, it seems to be, is not going like Ramer. The Rabbi Meir, because if we be going like Rabbi Meir, came into Amr Trei Kiddusha Alavisha Avilahu. Rabbi Meir apparently holds that the Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, the washing of the hands and the feet from the water of the Kir, they are both done for the Levisha, for the putting on of the new clothing. So therefore, in our case in the Mishnah, on the first wearing of the clothing, on the first wearing of the Big Day Sahav, there should be two Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. As we'll learn later on, there's a machlekes Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, that when the Kohen Gadol, he removes his clothes, so let's say the second change of clothing. So when he removes the clothes, he does a Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. The Rabbanan hold that when he does Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, removes the clothes, and then does it when he puts on the new set of clothing, does it again. So apparently the Rabbanan hold that one set of Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, of washing the hands and feet, is for the removal of the old clothes. So prior to removing of the clothes that he was wearing, he does a Kiddush. And then when he puts on the new set, when he changes into the new set of clothing, so he's changing, for instance, from Big Day Zohav to Big Day Lohan. He does a Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, removes the Big Day Zohav, then puts on the Big Day Lohan and does it again. So therefore, one set is for the removal of one set of Big Day Kahuna, and the other one is for the putting on, for the donning of the other clothing. He's changing into the different Big Day Kahuna. So he does a Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim for the removal of the Big Day Zahav. He puts on the Big Day Lohan, he does it again. So we understand why in our Mishnah, the Tana says that he does not do Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim when he removes the Big Day Chol, his regular clothing, that does not require Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. It's only for the Big Day Kahuna. So therefore, that's why the Mishnah starts off, and it says, it doesn't mention Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. He removes his clothes, he goes to the mikveh, and then, after he goes to the mikveh, then he says, Pasha Yorad V'Tavol, Oliver Staveg, he puts on the Big Day Zav, then Kiddush. So we understand that there is no first Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. But according to Rameir argues on the Rabbanan, and he says, no, the Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim is not done prior to the removal of the first set of clothing. According to Rameir, he removes the Big Day Zahav, he does Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, he puts on the new set of clothing, the Big Day Lohan, and he does it again. So apparently both of them are done for the wearing of the new set of clothing. Well, if they're both for the for the wearing, for the donning of the new set of clothing, well, what difference does it make that in our case, in our Mishnah, that he's removing, at the first set, he's removing Bigdei Chol. If the Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim is not for the removal of the clothing, it's for the wearing of the new set of clothing, well, he's wearing now the Bigdei Zahav. There should be two Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, one before wearing them and one after he puts them on. So apparently our Mishnah is not like Rav Meir. Amr Rav Papa Rav said, no, it's not so. Bein l'Rabban and bein l'Rav Meir, it's not the way you're understanding it. That it's a machlokes if one is for the removal of the clothing and one is for the putting on of the clothing, or if they're both for the donning of the new set of clothing. He says, no. According to both of them, chad apshita, the Bigdei Kodesh, chad alavisha, that both agree. Everybody agrees that one is for the removal and one is for the putting it on. So what's the machlokes? And the machlokes is over here about how to interpret the pasuk. It's how to interpret the pasuk. The pasuk says the pashat v'rachas v'lavash. The Torah says that the kohen gadol, he's pashat. It says he removes his clothing. It says the pashat's Bigdei abara lavash. And then it says v'rachas b'sara b'mayim b'makam kodesh v'lavash as begadav v'yatsa v'asas haylos. So it says in the pasuk he removes his clothes. Then it says that he does the rechitza, and it says that he puts on his clothing, and then he does the oil. So it says pashat v'rachatz v'lavash. Rameir savar makish pshita l'visha. Rameir says we make a hekesh, we make a comparison for the removal of the clothing and the putting on of the clothing. Ma levish loivesh v'achakach mekadesh. Just like when we say, when he puts on the clothing, he first puts on the clothing, and then he does the rechitza. So too we say that apshita paishet v'achach mekadesh. By the removal of clothing, he removes it, and he does the kiddush after the removal. Meaning it's not the way you understood it, that Rameir says that both kiddushim are for the new wearing of the clothing. One is for the removal. It's just that he says, even though it's for the removal, you first remove the clothing, and then you do the kiddush. Just like when you wear the clothing, the kohen gadol puts on the clothing, he puts on the clothing and then does the kiddush. He also holds for the removal of the clothing, even though it is for the removal, but you do it after the removal. And that's why, in our case in the Mishnah, where he's removing the Bigdei Chol, there's no requirement for Kiddush. Rabbanan Savra and the Rabbanan say, no, we learn it differently. Makish pshita levisha. We make a hekesh, the removal, to the putting it on. Ma levisha kishu lavish mekadesh. Just like the levish, he puts it on when he's wearing the clothes, he's mekadesh. Al pshita kishu lavish mekadesh. That's how we compare it. Just like when he does the putting on of the clothing, he does the kiddush when he puts on after he put on the clothing. So he does it when he's clothed. Pshita, when he does, and the removal of the clothing, he does the kiddush when he's clothed, when to lovish mekadesh. But they both agree that one is for the removal and one is for the putting it on and for the dressing, and therefore, in our case, in the case of the Mishnah, where the removal is Bigdei Chol, when he's just starting the avodas Bigdei Chol, there's no requirement for kiddush. The Rabbanah said, Papa, how can you say that? How can you say this interpretation? We learned in Brisa, they put a sheet of linen between the kohen gadol and the people. So when he was going to be toivel for tznius, they spread a sheet. Pashat, it says, he removed his clothing, v'yard v'tavel, and he went to the mikveh, and he was toivel. All of his stopping, he dried himself. They brought him the Bigdei Zahav, he put them on, the kiddush yad ragel, and he does the kiddush yad ragel after he put on the clothing. That is the sheet of the Rabban. But Rabbi Meir, he says, Pashat v'kiddush yad ragel. He says no. He says clearly, Pashat, he removes his clothing. Kiddush Yorav Raglav, he does the Kiddush, even though it's the first wearing of the clothing. He's removing his Bigdei Chol. Nevertheless, he removes it, does Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, b'yard v'tavel, he's taivel, olive in his stopping, he goes up and he dries himself, maybe like bigdei zav v'lovash, and then v'kiddush adav v'raglav, and then he does kiddush again. So you see clearly that Rav Meir holds that the both kiddushim are for the levisha, and even by the initial one, where the removal is the bigdei chol, after he removes it, prior to wearing the bigdei zav, he does one kiddush. After putting on the bigdei zav, he does a second kiddush. So you see clearly it's not that way, and you must say that our Mishnah is not like Rav Meir. Omar lahu, he said, Tanya. If the Brisa taught it that way, then it taught it that way. Meaning, he said, from the Brisa you do have a raya. From our Mishnah itself, you don't necessarily have a raya because you could learn it the way we suggested. Meaning, the nafkamina is that if we find that this Brisa, there's a kasha on it, or there's something that is not substantiated and incorrect, therefore we do not have to learn our Mishnah like Rav Meir. But in the interim, we have this Brisa. It will therefore teach us that Rav Meir does in fact hold that both of them are for the levisha. So now the Gemara asks, well, if we take that position, then Bishlam el Rav Meir, we understand according to Rav Meir, Hainu the Mishkachas law, that now we find a Sarah Kiddush. Now we know that there were 10 Kiddushim, and we learned that there's 10 times that the Kohen Gadol does the washing of the hands and feet, the Kiddushim, the Kir. So we understand according to Rav Meir that there's 10 because you're starting off with 2. And there's 5 change of clothing, so that there's 5 times 2 is 10. But El Rabbanan Tishahava, but according to Rabbanan, you're missing one. Because we say according to Rabbanan, he does not do the Kiddush. It's for the removal. He's removing bigdei chol. You do not do the Kiddush after the first removal, the removal of bigdei chol, so you're missing one. You only have 9. Amalach Rabbanan say, Kiddusha Basra, the last one that you say that is missing, when did he do that? Ki poshet bigdei kodesh, v'lovish bigdei chol aved lahasam. He says no, that the last one is, therefore the Rabbanan say, is when he finishes the avoid of the day, at the conclusion of the day, when he is removing his bigdei kodesh rather, when he removes his bigdei kodesh, since one of the kiddushim is for the removal. At that time, before he removes his bigdei kodesh, at the end of the day, when he removes his bigdei kodesh, and he's going to now change it to bigdei chol, he does it there. That's the 10th one. According to Rav Meir, there's no kiddush over there, because according to Rav Meir, both kiddushim are for the wearing of the new set of clothing. Now here it's the end of the day, and he's going to put on bigdei chol, so here the positions are reversed. Rav Meir says, well, he's changing into bigdei chol, no kiddush is required at all. Rabbanan say, yeah, of course there's no kiddush for when he puts on the bigdei chol, but since one of the kiddushim are for the removal of the bigdei kodesh, prior to him removing the last set of bigdei kodesh, where at the end of the day he needs a kiddush, that's the 10th one.